I gotta like stretch and get back into this. It's been a month
Yeah,
since we did the podcast.
Little out of practice.
I was a little rough last time, but I think I'm back on my game now, everybody. I think I'm back.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
KT's back.
You got to gargle with salt water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, hello and welcome back, everybody else, listeners, the foam flinging world, to the Foam News Collective podcast. This is episode 25. As always, this is the companion podcast to the news show itself. And what a news show it is this episode. We have a whole month of stuff to catch up. Actually, I guess, isn't it like 5 weeks?
Yeah, it's
since
almost
we
six.
did an episode?
Almost 6. It's just close
We took
to
we took a pretty hefty break. I'm glad we did. I'm really glad we did. We needed it. But we are back now, and we've got a lot to talk about for sure. We are here with a very special guest, Al the Geek. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us today.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here, man. Especially after a long-deserved holiday. Yes, it is time to have some fun again.
Yeah. So I definitely want to have a chance to introduce you to the audience. You are one of those guests where pretty sure everybody listening to this podcast knows who you are, but it's still a great opportunity just to kind of dig into your past a little bit. But you're also here representing the World Foam Alliance, and we brought you on to talk about the amazing fundraiser that happened in early December of last year, right after our last episode of the year came out, which was a huge success. But we also literally just before recording this podcast, the World Foam Alliance dropped some really, really big news. And so we're going to want to talk about that with you as well. After that, we are going to discuss some of the top news stories right now. We're going to discuss some accusations of AI design that have been put against Hasbro by some folks, and talk about the layoffs that have occurred at Hasbro and how that kind of affects the Nerf world and the design world. We have some questions from our Ko-Fi supporters for Al and for the hosts. And we are going to go through a long list of leaks that came from Chicken Master 99, make our predictions about those things and kind of see where that takes us. And we also want to talk about an influx of information on blasters from the Asian market that are not generally accessible to the Western market. And you know what? I need to mention one other really, really important thing. We are running the podcast today shorthanded. We were joking that this is, on average, the oldest age Nerf podcast in operation this week because we're down Grim for the time being, having some technical issues. Grim's fine, just unable to record with us right now, but will be back with us as soon as possible. But with that, all the business covered, we can get into the fun stuff. Al, will you, and actually, I've always wondered this because we've gotten to talk Nerf a lot, but I don't think I've ever really gotten sort of your whole background and how you got into this hobby. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So again, everyone, my name is, I am Al the Geek, and surprisingly, my first name is Al. I realized because I know, right? How weird and crazy. But I am the reason that our average age has escalated. I am still in my 40s, recently turned 49, but I knew, you know what, I'm going to forget stuff, and people might call out if I come up with some other name and not respond. So I'll just keep it easy, and everyone knows me as Al, so that's how it's stuck. But my whole first entry into this started probably in about the year 2015. So my full-time career is I am a general contractor, painting primarily. And so you're in and out of people's houses all the time. And I remember cutting through this one kid's playroom as we were going to find where this, I think one had a leak in her house or something like that. And I realized that I had not come across Nerf guns in forever. And looking down at them thinking, wow, these did not exist when I was younger or when I was a kid, and I couldn't believe how far they had come. So as a result, that evening...
So what did we have in 2015?
2015,
what kind of stuff were you seeing?
I think it was probably a Retaliator, and it was probably a rough cut. And so
that makes sense.
Oh yeah, and I think like the first Nerf gun, just a tangent, that I ever owned was probably way before that. And I think it was a secret shot that I had bought, I think, to shoot my little cousin with. So that was the extent of it before that. But then, so when I got home that evening, I had Googled Nerf guns, and then obviously you quickly find the whole modding genre, and that was a rabbit hole I fell down. And at that time, too, I was kind of looking for a new hobby. Before that, I had actually painted 700 scale waterline warships, if you know what that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Vaguely? Yeah.
I know what a weird jump, right? So you went from models to that?
I mean, well, I mean, this is something we've talked. Oh, Vile's a great example, right? We've talked a lot about having other hobbies and bringing that energy and those skill sets to bear.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of transition,
typical. Yeah. I would say that's a typical transition, because you're not the only one. I've heard of other people who used to do action figures or model kits of like Gundams and stuff. That this is a very typical thing I've seen from a lot of people in the hobby that have been around for a while, at least now, and especially the ones that do painting work, I've noticed.
So for Vile over here, welder, fabricator, 3D designer. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know some people who have used their other skills to
just a couple of skills, hobby. Just a few little, just dabbling here and there. KT over here also being a Game Boy modder and tinkerer of electronics and things like that. Yeah, of course. Yeah, KT.
I didn't say it. You said it. Yeah. Anyway. So you fell headfirst into it, and it felt like a good fit.
It absolutely did. By the way, yeah. What do you mean? Not everyone in their mod tools has a miter saw, table saw, all kinds of cordless drills, and. But yeah, when I Googled it, and I remember the one I had found, and I forget who made it, but at that point, it was definitely a Nerf long shot with an extended barrel that they put on it, and it was painted in like a desert camo. Actually, it was more like a sand color, but it looked like a big old Barrett 50 cal. And so when I saw that, I thought, you know what, that'd be fun to try. I think I can make that. So it started with me picking up, I think the first one I bought at that point was a Retaliator from Target. But then Facebook Marketplace, I was able to find a couple of old long shots and a bunch of other things. And then I just started with different barrel designs, different painting techniques, a whole lot of YouTube later, and lots of failed attempts, some successful, but it was definitely... It was trial and error, which then also leads to when people ask me and they say, well, I can never paint like you can. Yeah, trust me, you should have seen the first year and a half of me trying. They were all pretty sad.
For sure. Well, and you've developed a very unique style, and I want to ask you about that, but I don't want to spoil too much, because we actually, one of our supporter questions is going to lead into that a lot. So we're going to get to hear a bunch about that later on for sure. Why don't we move, since we're going to get to come back to that, why don't we move to some of the World Foam Alliance stuff for a bit here? I do want to, before we get to the big new World Foam Alliance news, I do want to talk about the fundraiser. Now, y'all did a 24-hour stream, which already is just a daunting task. Even with a team like the one that you had doing it, and all the people that signed up to do this, how many different content creators and folks did you have on the stream? Do you know offhand?
So offhand, I think it's somewhere between 25 and 30. And the best part about that is when we first came up with the idea, because we thought, all right, we need to spread the word, and we want to again like emulate the whole idea of the World Foam Alliance, is that being community based, being able to expand and connect people. So we thought a charity drive is a great way of like putting ourselves out there, contributing to the community, and then also enabling what we wanted to accomplish. So the first that first meeting, the suggestion was a 24-hour live stream, and then Captain Xavier and I looked at each other and thought, so people are going to tune in at like 3 a.m. to watch both of us sleeping and drooling on a desk. Is that going to work? But then at that point, realizing we couldn't do it, but we know there's enough people that would love this idea. And again, just to backtrack a little bit, this actually was piggybacked off of what Clowny Nerf would do every year. And those that don't know what Clowny would do for Toys for Tots. And the way he did it was he would get people to send him, from different contributors and sponsors, send him prizes. And to enter the giveaway, you just had to provide proof that you had donated a toy or a cash donation to Toys for Tots, and you automatically entered into his lottery to win a prize for doing so. Now, he was a one-man operation, and it is quite overwhelming. And I remember talking to him even before the World Foam Alliance existed about the frustration of it. So when we had this idea, we approached him and asked him about it. And I think his response was, "Yes, please. I don't need no credit. Somebody do this. This will be great." And so when that was like that laid the groundwork for what we were going to do. But at that same point, we thought, well, why don't we open it up to other people? Because we're sure there's other people that are going to want to be involved. People in different time zones where we can cover the 24 hours. And the best part about it was once we opened it up, we didn't have to make promises. We didn't have to make deals. We didn't have to pay anyone. In fact, all our spots filled up within a week, which is just amazing.
It's fabulous.
It really is, because
so cool.
You never know how people are going to respond. But as soon as we put it out there and everyone responded and came forth, we're like, all right, now we got to make sure that no one feels left out, which is a great problem to have. But still, it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great art. This hobby and this community is so strong, and it's just things like this that remind you how great that was. Can you please remind me how much you raised?
So when we first set out, because at this point it's our first run at it, we have no idea how much we're going to raise. You want to set a goal because it makes it easier to achieve it, but at the same time you don't want to look foolish by saying, well, you know what, we're going to make $500 and somehow we made -3. And we had set a goal of $5,000, and which a couple of us thought would be kind of a stretch, but you said, you know what, we'll work with it. We'll make it happen. It's our first year. We can use that as an excuse. Let's just see what we can do. And so this was also an event. We had the idea in late summer, but it wasn't until about November 7th where it was finally boots on the ground. Let's make this happen. And we somehow were able to pull it off in a month where we actually had an organized stream with various contributors, over 25 from the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, Netherlands, and I'm probably missing somewhere else, New Zealand, possibly. And it came together beautifully.
I saw some of the fun mod people from England, and I saw, I can't remember. It was great. It was quite well put together, especially considering how many disparate contributors you had.
It is, and I think so. Well, just to answer before we go way off topic or way tangent, we achieved our goal of 5,000, but then exceeded it at the same time, and the final amount was $7,165, which
that's so great.
Nice.
It's amazing. And if you were there, if you saw it, thank you once again to all of you. We put it together, but there's definitely generosity of so many people out there listening to this podcast in general. It's because of you that we're able to make this happen, that we're able to make the donation to Toys for Tots. And again, testament to what this community can do in terms of unifying, how we can give back, and just the main, I guess, feeling of what we are, where we are just all out here to have fun and support one another.
Mm-hmm.
So good. That's so good. I was really impressed by that entire production. I think y'all did a really great thing and a really great job of doing it. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it next year, especially now that we have sort of the next step in the evolution of the World Foam Alliance, something that's been long awaited, that we've been reporting on the development of for a while. We got to talk with Nate and with Dart Sweep a little while back while this was still sort of in progress. But I know that the announcement was just made on the live stream, but if you want to break the news for the context of our podcast, Al, you want to tell the people what the big new World Foam Alliance news is today?
Well, as we've been telling people, in the new year, we are officially going to launch the website. And again, if you haven't registered, go to worldfoamalliance.org and be sure to register. The way we connect to people is by knowing where you are. Now, up to this point, that's all you could do is enter a name and you're registered. However, today that's going to change. Tonight at midnight, worldfoamalliance.org goes live. Our website is officially going live.
When Al says tonight, it's Wednesday that we're recording the podcast. So by the time you're hearing this, it's been live for a couple days. You're late. Get over there.
or
log it. Go do it now.
No, tonight. That way, just in case we have some hiccups. Yeah, tonight it went live, not 2 days ago.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So, this is really exciting because, World Foam Alliance website is supposed to be a central hub for a lot of, to help people find clubs, to help people find community, to connect all the different parts of our hobby together. And it's something that I think we really need. And I'm really excited that is becoming a real active thing that people can use now. We just had some folks asking in the Discord where to go to find information and discussion about competitive play. And there's another great resource that exists, Dart Sweep, not the person, the website. And he sort of automated his Discord, but the website still does. But it's very specifically competitive play focused, I believe. Whereas World Foam Alliance is a little more centered. Obviously, you're cataloging. Maybe you can clarify. Obviously, you're cataloging competitions, but it's kind of more focused around clubs. Is the feeling that I get?
Correct. It's more on connections and clubs. So connections in terms of you want to form a club, or from the basic level of you'd love to go to a local park and be able to actually play and find out that, there's actually 7, 8, 10, 30 people in your local area that want to do the same thing. At that point as well, you realize that you may want to form a club. So the World Foam Alliance, the way it's supposed to be set up is that we will be the resource for you to kind of guide you and show you how to form that club. So this is going to be our main focus, even though there are plans as we grow where we will be hosting large professional tournaments. And again, through other avenues and venues, there will be information on competitive play. But again, our central focus is connection. Connection.
That's so good. And it's so needed. Here where I am, I just found out that some people that I met through the D&D game I take one of my kids to have been flinging foam in a neighboring city for a while. And I just never could find them. It was just random happenstance. We really need this kind of centralized thing. So I'm so excited for this. I'm so glad it's going to exist. If y'all have not already been to the World Foam Alliance website, go check it out right now, and make sure you sign up. There's really no reason not to. You're not putting your social security number on here. I'm not going to worry about a security breach. You just go do it. Find some foam friends, make it happen.
We're not going to take credit cards. We're not going to send people at your door. We don't have pamphlets.
Exactly. It's safe. And you're dealing with real people. You're dealing with real people. You're not dealing with my gentle, clever transition into our first news topic with AIs and computers. And that's something that has come up a little bit around the hobby lately. Really just based around 2 images. We've had a lot of new blasters coming out of Hasbro lately that have had some weird kind of renders. I know Vile has, but Al, have you seen this? The new zombie blasters, the driller and the bat one.
The driller I have seen. The bat one I have not yet. And even the driller looking at it, yeah.
Yeah. So this started, I think, with the driller, where a lot of aspects of it are clearly borrowed from the geometry of other blasters. It has parts of the hammer shot on it, and it has, what did we decide the trigger was from, Vile?
Oh, the SH6, the Fortnite one. Yeah.
Right. And so some people started saying, oh, this looks like an AI generated image. And extrapolated from that somehow the idea that Hasbro was using AIs to design their blasters. And then, which there wasn't really any evidence of that, right? It's a big sort of leap, a supposition that people were making. And I think we're so saturated now with people making like memes with AI image generation, and bumping into it in ads and stuff, that it's easy for people to leap to those conclusions. And then recently, the rival Challenger appeared as sort of a leak situation, and the Challenger was revealed with the only image of it is this render. And because of a few weird things about the design, it has what looks like an N-Strike muzzle. It's a rival blaster, but it looks like it has an N-Strike muzzle. And I think that's just a design language choice. I think they were just like, oh, let's hint at the N-Strike muzzle on this to give it some detail. But I think people decided that was like an AI decision.
I think it might have also just been some of the shapes, because there's a lot of, if anybody hasn't seen it, there is a lot of like sling loop attachments. It almost seems weird. There's like, it's almost like piping coming off of it, really in just almost what almost looks kind of haphazardly where it's just placed, sort of. But it's definitely design.
It also introduces a new curved magazine, and I think people may have looked at that as a curved rival magazine as an unusual element. Yeah. But to be 100% clear, we have confirmation from a human at Hasbro that not only were not only did humans design this blaster and the driller, they personally know those humans. They are our contact is one of those humans, and one of the other humans was laid off by Hasbro.
Yeah.
So, these are real people, and I really want to know what both of y'all kind of think about this, because I think a lot about, it's very easy to look at these companies as monoliths, and I think that we should be wary of like corporate interests when we're, dealing with the business side of all this stuff. But also, like, there's human beings that work for this. Like, every blaster that you like or don't like on the shelf, no matter how good or bad it is, somebody spent weeks of their life making this thing possible. I think
I'll just kind of chime in on that, because I do CAD. I've done 3D design, 2D design. That's what I did. And a lot of times, if you take weird elements like the N-Strike lug, a lot of times when you are designing, and we've seen this with Hasbro before, if you get blasters, how many times do they reshell a blaster? The internals are the exact same, or grip is the exact same, or a certain part of it is the exact same. They will rehash a lot of stuff because that's cost efficient. And sometimes when a designer, and I did this myself, when I go to design something new, I will sometimes pull old files and pull parts of those in so I don't have to redraw them. And say the barrel that could have been literally a blaster that they pulled in that did have an N-Strike lug on it. And they then designed the rest of the outside of it as a design for them to sell and get approval on, and so on and so forth. And they might have kept that on there without actually looking at the N-Strike lug, because it just looks like an orange barrel. But when you actually look at it, it has the geometry, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, it has that. That might literally just have been the person who designed it just taking the quick routes to get something to get it on paper, to get it signed off on, and then from there they went further down the line. There are a lot of things that we do when we are CAD people who do CAD and people who design these types of stuff. We have to take shortcuts because we are on time crunches. We have to get stuff, certain jobs have time crunches to them. You have X amount of time to get something for approval and then something into the place. And I think it's important that people understand that is the human side of it, is, that one little piece was left there when it probably shouldn't have been. And we've also seen that as well, where we see a rendered one with a completely different muzzle piece on it or whatever. And then when we actually get it, it's kind of different. We're like, wait a minute, that's not the muzzle piece I saw, or whatever. It's whatever reasons. And sometimes, and we've heard this from other people as well, like, Blaster Time was a good example of that. When he told us that sometimes it comes from one place, and even when it gets to the manufacturer, they change something even there themselves because of out of ease or use. So it's not even
that seems to be what happened with the Busby Thundershot.
Yeah, exactly.
Was
the Busby Thundershot.
They had designed multiple mechanisms, and the factory was like, "Well, we're just going to use the cheapest mechanism that you designed,
or the
Why
first
wouldn't we
one."
do that?
Yeah,
right.
It's revisions. That's the human error, the human element, right? The human element is always going to have an error, and I look at it in that sense where somebody designed it, somebody put that time, and in certain places like this, they could just throw it on to get it into a render, to get it on into the desk or onto the desk of the people who are going to sign off on it and approve it, so that way they can continue on with how the internals are done, how the molds are made, how this and that. Because there's a lot of process, there's a lot of barricades and checkpoints throughout something from cradle to grave, from when it starts to when it's finished. And there's always a lot of changes, and sometimes things get missed. It just happens, And even the driller, a good example. I know. I think Radioactive was when Radioactive Designs got a hold of it. Said that the bottom little piece, because it's supposed to look like a cordless drill, and the bottom piece of it looks it's a dart storage, but it also looks kind of like a battery.
One of those batteries in the handle.
Yeah. And said that it was a little bit small, like it's too small for your hand. And the only thing I would say for something like that is a lot of times they might be under constraints of the size of the mold that they have, and maybe they they had to fit this design element and make it fit within a mold. And we've seen Busby handles. We know that sometimes companies don't know what human hands shapes are like, just saying. So, again, that could just be a limitation or a creative constraint that the individuals had to be within. So that's kind of my 2 cents into it.
Well, and I think about it sometimes in the context of sometimes as modders, we make things that are, we're in the presence of a prime example, things that are just outlandish and incredible and off the wall, and folks love it because it has your individuality and it has your, I feel like you've made a lot of stuff like that, Al, things that just are so kind of bigger than life. If someone at Hasbro made something that looked like one of those, I feel like people would react really differently. And I think that part of that is because they don't see the human behind it. Whereas when they see you do it, or they see one of Vile's mods, they're like, oh, this person made it, and they are able to actually appreciate what went into it because they sort of have that glimpse into the process. Did you ever have that experience? Do either of you ever have that experience kind of talking to people about stuff you've built?
I definitely have. And part of it, just to lean into a continued aspect of what Vile got into, is that when these companies come out with new products or new designs or new ideas, it's not necessarily the biggest, best, coolest design out there. I am sure that there are some great ideas that were very creative, very fun, very off the wall, that probably would have even put some of my stuff to shame. However, it still comes down to the business aspect. For me, just because it's just me and I sell what I make, I have no limitations on manufacturing. I have no limitations on cost, shipping, turnaround time, safety standards. I can stick something big and ridiculous under something else big and ridiculous, and it is a great one-off. Whereas, example,
and we're so glad you do.
Thank you. It's me too, because it's fun. But like what Vile was saying, there is the CAD process, obviously. But then when you also comes back into manufacturing, and with a lot of these designers, I'm sure they're not given carte blanche, make whatever you want, and an unlimited budget. In fact, there are probably many constraints in there where it's got to be a blaster that's in this price range. It's got to be made in this amount of time. There are so many constraints, whereas you cannot automate a process like that without having the human element. You need that design team, that human element, to be able to figure out, with all the constraints, to still be able to create something and invent something that we want to buy, and not just some standard, well, I entered all the variables and therefore the system gave me X, and here's X, and why is it not selling? Because it's crap. So
I mean, that's a really good point, because it's not just that like using AI would be like bad and not nice. It wouldn't actually work. They're not actually capable of creating a product that you can bring to market that fits, like you said, all the constraints required to actually make a profit off of something.
correct. And even if it's a big design, if they realize that, yeah, this is big and great, but if it costs us X amount to for one piece, and we're only making this much profit, why am I going to bother doing it? A good example, I'm pretty sure, is the Dart Zone, the Mark IV, the gold one. Those are big and beautiful, but they make no money on them. So why are we going to keep making more and selling them? And no one's going to pay what if they jack the price up to $300-400 a piece? No one's going to pay that. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
it's a great idea, but it's not going to work. For me, also, some of my one-offs I love making, and again, just for my Etsy store, when I'm selling through my Etsy store, for some of the projects to be able to sell it at a reasonable price, there are some things where I'm not going to mass produce because it's kind of like I can't charge that much for that many people. So it's coming up also with designs where it's like I realize not everyone's going to jump or drop $200, $300, $400 in something I make. And I know a lot of people love to be able to just walk away with something I make. So it's figuring out something that I can sell for between $40 and $80 that still is mine. Like you can tell that I made it, but it actually fits in your budget, which is also why I'm very big on giveaways and giving stuff away when I have excess of it, because I know not everyone can afford it, and I'm fine with that. It's also when I do like conventions. It's when I have my booth set up, I have so many blasters out on the table, and I let everyone touch them, play with them, do whatever they want with them. And part of it for me, it's a quality control aspect to it, where if someone picks it up and it breaks in their hand, then I need to reevaluate why I should charge them $300 if it broke that easy in their hand.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
But at the same time, some of these people don't have that budget to be able to buy my stuff, but it's still the experience that, especially if you've seen my work, you know me and you follow me, you're not going to buy it, but you love to see it. You go ahead, pick it up, try it, take a selfie. I'm good with that.
So true. So true. So, I mean, you mentioned, we're talking about the profit margin on what these companies are doing, and Hasbro just laid off about 20% of their workforce. We know that some of that, or they're in the process of doing that. I guess it was not an immediate change. Thank goodness we as individual creators don't have to worry about stuff like that, I guess. But it leads me thinking about how our major companies are faring. I was listening to Foam After Dark, another great Nerf podcast that's out there, and they were talking about how some people don't realize, for example, that Dart Zone is a smaller company. Versus a company like Hasbro, which is quite large, but really the thing that's large about them is that they control a decent amount of their own manufacturing. The design teams at Hasbro, I believe, are larger than those at Dart Zone, but Hasbro is making so many different things. Primetime Toys makes a decent amount of things, but one thing that I don't hear talked about quite as much also, though, is that X-Shot is actually part of Zuru, is a very large company. Not as big as Hasbro, but I think there was a thing now that they're like the second largest blaster manufacturer.
They are quite large because they have most of the international market where Hasbro doesn't necessarily touch or have as many of sales. X-Shot actually has really good market penetration in a lot of places.
We were bumping into that a lot with the long shot when it first came out, and finding it announced in all kinds of places. Like every week there was another country that someone was like, "Oh, I found the long shot on the shelves."
In a lot of European countries, we got I can't even remember all of them.
Yeah, South America, East Asia, a bunch of places were reporting back.
It was crazy how much penetration they had in the market for that blaster.
Yeah. And
it's a great blaster.
So I guess it is, and it has a really unique place in the market. And I think that X-Shot has done a really good job of what, I think Dart Zone initially did, although they mostly, again, did it in the US, right? Because things like the Nexus Pro was a Walmart exclusive, which pretty much just means it hit the US and Canada. And it was a while until they had an option that they could sell internationally. And so I guess I kind of want everybody's thoughts on how our major companies, and include Busby in this as well. We're kind of talking about the pro stuff, which Busby, aside from their involvement in the creation of the Tryon, is not as deep into. But how does it seem like our major brands are faring? Because this layoff news is certainly not great. But people have also had a lot of complaints about Dart Zone lately, right?
There is, but also I think, so when it comes to the complaints in general, it's because we're so heavily involved in what the product was, as opposed to like, let's say, man, even when I first got into this 6-7 years ago, we were just happy that stuff was out there. Where now we are getting so deep into it that we are very much more analytical, and our expectations are higher, where we pick things apart. And sometimes the way we pick things apart, again, this falls back into the whole limitations and constraints for construction. Why are some of our pro level blasters still 3D printed ones? Just because the amount of detail, the amount of money and time to actually develop and create that example, and now try to mass produce that at an affordable scale where you as a company are still making enough money. But then at the same point, as big as our hobby is, it's not that big where a major corporation is really going to sit there and go, well, the only reason we don't have to lay off 1,200 people this quarter is because the hobby has bought enough blasters. As big as we are and as popular as we are, we're still just a drop in the bucket. But when it comes to Hasbro and the 1,200 being laid off, there's definitely a downturn in terms of what people are spending money on, just the economy in general. Just go to your local grocery store. I saw it in my Etsy store as well over the last couple of months with a decline. Sales are still coming in, but not what it was before. But then also, you look at Hasbro, I think Hasbro, unlike Dart Zone, leans too much on, well, we're Hasbro, we'll do whatever we want. And as a result, their sales have probably suffered. The Elite 2.0 series, like, come on, man. Like, a lot of these things are sad. And so it's kind of a shakeup where leading to, we got to lay people off because obviously we're not making money. Which then also goes back to what we're talking about with the whole zombie strike. People are designing it, but again, you're designing it at this point, them knowing we're not making enough money. We got to find something that'll make us a lot of money. Oh, but by the way, your budget has been cut or your constraints are this tight because we're not where we are. So again, that all ties back into not having money. I just lost myself, but there's so much. So much to unpack here in terms of like ultimately, as much as these companies want to make people happy, it still comes down to they have to make money. If they're not making money, they're not charitable organizations that'll just sit there and deliver whatever it is we ask them.
Or do a 24-hour live stream. Has our hobby or even the customer base at large just been trained to expect an off-the-shelf product that works exactly the way that works exactly the way they want it to? Like, is it sort of like an audience training thing that's happened here, where which is, it's funny to say that because I think when the Nexus Pro came out, people were so surprised by it that things that I think now may not be as accepted, like the fact that it was short dart and long dart having the like prime slop that like the X-Shot long shot doesn't have. So like we've solved those problems since then, but at the time it felt so magical, and I think people are expecting that level of magic now, even though we've like quote unquote refined our tastes in off the shelf products.
Yeah,
does that make sense? Is this sort of audience learning?
Well, yeah, I was there during the whole original Nexus, hype train, if you will, kind of thing. The big hype of this is crazy. This is like it's sort of like as each blaster's come out, and it was fairly incremental, obviously, when it was pretty much just Hasbro and then off-branded stuff. There really wasn't a whole lot, right? It was pretty, the bar was fairly low. There wasn't a whole lot to do. Then all of a sudden you have your first shelf store-bought pro-level blaster, and everybody was just flipping the table over how crazy it was, to the point that it became just buy a Nexus became sort of the thing. Don't even waste your time, because prior to that, you had to buy a bunch of kits from Worker, or you had to buy a Terminator, or which is hundreds of dollars at the time if you really wanted like the shell and the whole internals kit, or you wanted to get the internals kit to put it into your long shot. It costed you a couple $100, if not even more in some cases.
Yeah.
And at the price point that the Nexus came in at, and then the performance levels, because I remember going out and playing a war. It was still kind of shortly after the whole shutdowns and stuff. We were all in masks, and we all had thrown turf springs into them, and we were all hitting 220 FPS, and everybody was just everybody's minds were just blown at how crazy this was, that we just bought it for $50, and we threw a $10 spring in it or whatever it was, and that hype lasted for a pretty good while, and then Dart Zone really kind of tried to ride that wave pretty heavily. They did have like other ones, obviously, because you had the Mark I and stuff like that prior, but this was the first one that you could actually go down to the store and buy, and that was new. Even having half darts, that's also again setting the bar. But now we're at a point where we are picking apart every single thing. Oh, well, what's the weight of that half dart? Oh, well, that half dart is too light for, it's not going to have the distance or the accuracy. Like when you really kind of see that, like at first, just the fact that you could get one was like incredible. Oh my God, you could even get an Aeon Pro and it's $25. And now everybody's like, oh yeah, well, I have a printed whatever. Like it is sort of an evolution, I would say, from at least within the hobby. Anybody outside of the hobby would probably still buy one of these and not really care. But, because it hits 150 FPS and it's hitting so hard and it's crazy. They probably, somebody who's not necessarily as involved in the hobby as especially a lot of people are, and people who might have joined the hobby during or just before huge lockdowns, all of this has happened during that time frame, and everybody who has joined or has become a big part of it has been there and watched this steady incline or increase of the bar. And
Absolutely.
Now there's this expectation. There's a huge expectation, and the MK4 comes out. Obviously, it's at a much higher price point, and people are like, ugh, I could buy a 3D printed blaster that gets way better performance than that. And it's almost like people who had never had a 3D printed Pro blaster prior to this, like a Caliburn didn't exist before all of this, it's like, or the Talon Claws. It's almost as if, even then it's just a not understanding that we started with such lower end things, and we were mostly modders at the beginning of this. Now you're a person who can come in and buy something, whether it is printed or whether it is, because we have a lot more printed shops now, like a lot of 3D printing shops that just offer these pro level things.
We also shouldn't leave like Worker and XYL and the Tryon out of this equation. Like there's so many options.
There's
now.
A lot of stuff popping up since then, and we'll talk about it later because I see it in the outline, obviously, of Asian the Asian manufacturers and markets.
So here's
making their way over here.
Here's a thought on that, and part of it is because it popped in my head as soon as we were modders once, and now we're almost consumers instead of modders. But part of it is, and again, this is just like hypothetical. This is not accusatory at all. Part of it then also is this is, I guess, two-sided. Being that picky was necessary because as a result of it is now seeing the birth and the growth of a pro tournament and really turning it into a sport. So that aspect is necessary. However, the negative side to it is that when you look at almost every YouTube or anyone's review, there is always that critical aspect, and it's not necessarily it's not that, well, it's because this person says this and this person always does that. It's just kind of the nature of I guess it's the nature of society today, where everyone is more drawn to hearing negatives or criticisms when they want to learn about product as opposed to just telling me how wonderful it is. It's kind of people like, yeah, tell me what's wrong with it. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Just tell me why it's lacking. Yeah, I don't care that there's 375 reasons why this is great. Tell me the 2 reasons why it isn't. And so that's become so common where, yeah, you're right. It has almost kind of trained us to be super critical, to pick it apart, part of it in hopes of making it better, but at the same time now has really established realistic expectations. So then here's the question. As a result of that, are we going to be heading for a major correction? Because anytime you have something like that, there always is some kind of correction that happens and it turns into a different direction. But it's got to be there, but not as prevalent. Again, from the professional side, like I take the Dart Zone Omnia for a great example. When I get people that have no idea about the hobby, and you throw a Strifex in their hand, and you let them shoot off a couple of mags, and then you throw the Omnia in their hand, without going into FTS and who makes it and all the other things that the 3 of us know we're talking about, they'd be looking at us like kind of fish-eyed going, what did you just say? And asked, if you had the choice of buying this one or that one, which one would it be? Well, the Omnia, because this is super cool. So it's kind of that reverting back to the fact that, yeah, you wish you had something like this. Yeah, I tell you what, 7 years ago, go buy a Retaliator and tell me how much better it is than the current Omnia that you just bought off the shelf, or the Strifex.
Well, and the reality is, I think I think when you're talking about performing at needing to perform as an athlete at the levels that competitive players need to perform, if the Omnia has consistency problems, that's probably not a good choice for you, or you need to put some work into it. You need to be able to count on and rely on it. 99.9% of the people who are playing this stuff do not need that level of reliability, and a version 2 Omnia, even with the issues, quote unquote, that it has, is not really going to be a problem. Just as modding a Strife or buying a Strifex, any of it's going to work. It's all fine. It's all totally fine. But on the internet, it's so easy to get into this ball of just talking back and forth about all the little nitty-gritty details and acting like we're all top-tier competitive players and getting used to the expectations that those players have of their equipment. And it's fine to learn that stuff and to understand it, but we don't all necessarily need that in our day-to-day.
Yes.
Yeah, the pro players, and I mean, I obviously knew a lot of the pro players in the club I was in. They're now a pretty competitive team, and a lot of these people, the basic hobby of people who just like to mod or like to just build cool stuff, that is a completely different side of the hobby that they are not a part of. They build custom things that are built for a very competitive reason, and if it does not hit these wickets, it is trash to them. And it is, but they are competing. That they need or especially I would say want as much of an edge as they can absolutely get. And again, that's like you said, such a tiny percent of people in the hobby really need that.
It's appropriate for what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense for what they're doing. And that doesn't affect everybody.
Absolutely. My biggest thing is what in terms of performance and my effect is that I just have to make sure it's not too big, so I actually have a box to ship it to you, or if you're a cosplayer, that it fits in your suitcase. So
yeah, makes sense. And the market for off the shelf stuff grows all the time. We've had, with Dart Zone sort of starting it off, and now X-Shot is starting to make pro stuff, and now Nerf is starting to make pro stuff, and Worker, like I said, the Try-On, and now we're starting to see a lot of stuff from a wider market. There's always been kind of interesting stuff happening in the Asian market, which we haven't largely had access to. And we're starting to see more information about some of that kind of stuff. And it's such an interesting mix of kind of all the different things we're talking about. Episode 24, I did a long segment on this. I don't even remember what it's called now, but this like all metal machined lever action blaster. That
the G4, the H something, G4. I can't remember either, but I just remember that.
Yeah, and but then there's also, we're seeing things that are clearly geared towards competitive play. The competitive scene in a few different countries is really significant. Um, we have been adjusting, I think, our coverage to try to make sure we're covering more of this stuff. At some point in our career as a show, I think we recognize that a lot of our audience, we have a much more international. The Foam News Collective has a much more international audience than I thought. Looking at our numbers, but I still think most of our audience doesn't have access to a lot of this stuff. But I think we've sort of realized that it's still very valuable to cover it. And I think part of our hope is that some of these Asian companies will consider distribution to the U.S. market and the European market and other markets at some point. Maybe if people are talking about it enough. Like,
well, it's funny. Every time we get a little, like, it's usually trickles in through Facebook posts, but there's no link to purchase it. It's just more of like, hey, here's some photos and here's a video of this really cool looking blaster that you can't get. And like, but every time we see this stuff, there is always a whole bunch of people of like, is there a link I can buy this? Is there a way I can get a hold of this? Can you, is this only in China type of thing? Or is this only in whatever? Usually it's coming out of China specifically, but
yeah,
is there a way that we can get a hold of it? And there is always a growing number. And I know that the original problem is a lot of Asian countries and people who are in the hobby there, they do want fairly realistic. They want, very military simulated type of look. They want it to look like that. But what's funny is that you typically see there's like they make a select amount that look like that, right? They look realistic. And then later they have all these really bright colors, and then you'll see purple ones and neon greens and pink and all kinds of crazy stuff, because it's just like anything, right? Like everybody wants flash or flare. There's a whole group of people who want that. And so later reiterations of them, because usually they're machined, metal, and they'll be anodized in these really pretty colors, or they have injection molded of, again, same thing, really awesome colors. And it's great for like customizing for your team, and especially since there's so much competition there, it's great for teams who have a particular, flag or color combination. They can get their blasters to also do the same. We see individuals like Piggy actually is a good example. Piggy has a very similar to mine, but
I was going to say it has a very your color scheme.
Very my color, just saying. But like, that's something that is like, that's a blaster that Piggy has, because it has that color, colorway on it. And a lot of these companies will do things like that because there are people just like Piggy who also want stuff similarly. And we always get teasers. We always get these little things that pop out. And we saw it recently with the Phantom Tech stuff, that AEB that popped in, and they had a whole front end that they remachined on it. And it was a little bit realistic. It was sort of a green color, but guess what? You could get it in white. You could get it in pink. You could, and they're starting, and I'm glad to see that there are companies that are trying to, get this market and trying to bring more of the sort of stuff that's behind the curtain over there, that, out into the rest of the world, whether it be, even just outside of China and just in some of those local countries there, even to like Australia and stuff, but even all the way over here to the US or the EU. Like there are people who absolutely would love it. I'm one of them. I think a lot of the stuff that's coming out of there is really cool. I think there are these really interesting things that we're getting, trickled through, of like, bolt action revolvers and like rifle things and all this really crazy stuff. And there's some really interesting designers. So, I think that some of them might just be in their bubble and not thinking about anything beyond maybe their local market. But us getting this information and raising our voices and saying, hey, I would really love this cool blaster that you've designed, even if it is just a 3D printed version of it, because a lot of times they start with that as like a their beta testing, and then later they start doing machined or injection molded. It's a way to just give us different options, because I've noticed quite regularly, especially since we started this, and all the news stories that especially that I seem to be covering, the creators of these things really have unique styles in what they're creating. They are different. They are things that people hear, like, there is a very cookie cutter thing that a lot of people do, and at the end of the day, everything's a long shot, like an OG Nerf long shot. That's the platform that everybody kind of builds around. But the one thing I've really liked about seeing the stuff coming from the Asian market is that there's no real constraints. They think outside of the box. They try different stuff. A bolt action revolver rifle. It's just such a random combination of things, but it looks so cool. And
variety is the spice of life.
And it's just nice to see that. And I think that is something that really should be mixed with the rest of the hobby around the world, because we sometimes, and we're talking about it, we get conditioned, right, into thinking or having a particular way. This is the right way to do it. This is the perfect way to do it. You shouldn't go beyond this. And I like it because they seem to be doing something that's different, but still making them extremely competitive, and making them, look beautiful and have really cool designs or have really cool functionality to them. And I think it's worth us talking about that and trying to get more involved and trying to, again, mix it all together, because it just seems way too cool to leave it unattended like that. Like, why would you not want to have more in the hobby?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
I hope we continue to get more information about this stuff. We're really lucky that a number of people connected with this scene just joined our Discord and hopped in and have been contributing information, which has been hard to come by. It's just challenging to get over the language barrier. And so now we have some people involved who are really helping us with that. So thank you to all of the new people on the Foam News Collective Discord helping out with all this info and linking us to stuff. Super, super great. Speaking of unique styles, I think this is a good time to transition into questions that we have from our Ko-Fi supporters. I think that it's true. If you want to support us, you should check out our Ko-Fi, where you can give us whatever a month. I think it's just whatever. Do we have like a $5? I don't remember.
I think I think it's like a
most
$5.
People give us $5. Most
Yeah.
people give us $5. A few generous people give us more. But you get some perks, like getting to bother our guests with whatever questions you want. And as such, we've got 3 questions, 2 of which are definitely Al questions, one of which I think we're all going to tackle. And to start off, Teacup Story asks you, Al, what inspired your unique style of creations? Was it a specific art style or a TV show or what?
So for me, it was definitely twofold. First one, obviously, master keys. I just make them. I make way too many of them, and that inspired me. What got me going is growing up as a kid, and I think it was like obviously seeing like your M16 with a grenade launcher underneath, but then also in Aliens where you got the blaster and the grenade launcher underneath, and in so many horrible movies where you have ridiculous firearm combinations. And I thought, finally, when I got into this, I can make this, and I don't care if it's reasonable, if it's safe to use, whatever the reason. It looked cool and it was fun. So definitely inspired by those bad 80s movies. And then for me, especially, I guess my whole process of kind of developing my style and what worked was that now I can paint a blaster where it looks brand new out of the box, but I love distressing them so much more. And at the same time, I've definitely have been drawn to like a whole post-apocalyptic near future look, and it's prevalent through all my stuff. I think one the ease I find of making it happen, but two, I just love the look of it. And I think that tailors into another common question I get with this. But when people ask me what they should paint or what they should do, make what you want to make. Find your inner voice, make what makes you happy. And once you start doing that, that's when you really are able to kind of flow, I guess, with your inner creative side and really make some cool things, as opposed to listening to someone else tell you how to do it.
You know what? I actually have a related question to this. Is there like a fictional universe in your mind that your creations belong to? I think a lot about like Domachevsky is a creator who designs 3D printed blasters, but has a fictional plot that's attached to those designs. Do you have something like that in your mind when you're coming up with new things?
That makes a lot of sense. Not specifically, but like for example, I think all my Slingfire master keys, those started when one day I decided to ask my wife to give me an idea, and her great idea was, "Here,
really?
combine a Slingfire and a Vagabond." I'm like, "Can you pick anything else more difficult to combine, man? Like, do you not like me? I don't understand what's happening here." But her whole thing was post-apocalyptic. All you had was your daddy's Winchester, and you pick up parts that you find to make something to survive. So that has definitely been, with all the sling fires, kind of like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, which is why I put like faux barbed wire on it, spikes. The idea being, if you don't have rounds, you can still club mutants or aliens or anything else to death with it. But then also, I guess, tie in a little bit of Aliens, tie in a little bit of Terminator when Skynet had actually become aware. So it's definitely not a specific one, but definitely like flows through that whole genre at some point.
It's funny because every time I see your shoulder pad ones that you do, the first thing I think of is Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior.
Oh my god, absolutely.
Every time, every time I see it, like I see a lot of your stuff, I always think Mad Max 2 every time. It never fails every time I see your stuff.
Dude, that was the first inspiration for the first ones I made. And then also growing up in the 80s, Wrestling Legion of Doom with Spikes, and now obviously the inevitable combination of them. Yes. So yeah, you're bang on.
That's hilarious.
That's really fun. That's such an iconic look.
Yeah.
What they developed for those films. Next question. Ghost Armory asks, what would you say is the most important tip, trick, or process you learned early on when painting blasters, and how has it changed how you paint today?
Probably a couple of them. The first and foremost, I tell everyone, regardless of techniques, do not be afraid to fail. Expect failure, learn from it. It's the only way you get better. So as a result of that, when you're trying new techniques, shell cutting, painting, whatever it is, buy cheap or have broken blasters. Try on that first and not on your brand new shiny Strife or whatever it is and fail, because then it'll make you miserable and you will never do it again. But for me, definitely, and I can attest, I bought so much spray paint. And again, also following YouTube and other people's experiences, figuring out which paints I like to use. And like, for example, my base coat is always black vinyl dye. After that, the most predominant paints that I use is a product called Plutonium. It's a spray paint you can buy online. It is expensive, but the stuff is fantastic. Dries fast. 2 coats usually covers everything, and they got vibrant colors. And then after that, it's a clear matte on top of it. By really picking out those bases in terms of what product you use, because there's always the epic, you've primed it, you've painted it, it looks great, and now you go to clear coat it, but for whatever reason, because of the kind of paint the clear coat is not mixing nicely with your base coat, and now it's bubbled and ruined.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those interactions are so challenging to learn. It's just so many little details.
Oh my god, yes.
And any one of them that you mess up can like ruin hours and hours of work, and that's challenging. It just takes patience and learning the details, right?
It is, and even at that point, the other thing I do is I try not to do them when people ask them for me. I don't do a straight out of the factory paint job, because as soon as you nick it once, it kind of ruins the whole thing. And especially since I want mine Everyone picks them up. Everyone uses them. Even if it's just a wall hanger. Your buddies come over. Guess what they're taking down off the wall and going to play with or try. So the whole distressing it is fantastic because in case someone scratches it, in case a big piece of paint comes off of it, all you really have to do is pick up like a black marker or Sharpie, color it in, and it just looks like another defect on it, and you just keep on going.
It's a good trick.
That was the trick I used with one of mine. That's hilarious.
It works.
Actually, so I don't use Sharpie. I use I use the Sharpie silver paint pen.
Yep.
If it nicks, and that was my thing. I used this blaster that I did. It was a Nightingale, and I did the same kind of thing.
Oh, when did you start working for the Nerf Limited department, Vile? I didn't know about that.
What are you trying to say? Look. The Star Wars blaster was a fluke. It was not supposed to be that. It was supposed to be way better than that. But no, it was the same trick. It's just I use the silver enamel pens, and same thing. You just every time it gets a nick, you just hey, look, it's got nicked up now. You just put a little enamel on there. It looks like it's another chip piece of paint, and it's metal underneath.
Well, same token is like sometimes when you're painting in like panels or different sections, and for some reason you just cannot get that line straight enough, or find it where it's kind of like it's iffy, and then it's just because then it's either with the dry brushing, or I use the black rub and buff that gives me my black scuff marks, and suddenly it's a big black scuff mark right across that line, so you can't tell that I missed it a couple of times and said, you know what, screw it, distress.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, there you go, folks. There's your secret tips from Al the Geek. And for our last question, Colin Blank asks, what is your favorite, quote, bad blaster, unquote? This one's for all of us. Whoever wants to go first.
That is a good
question. I'll go first. Well, so my immediate one, and I've brought this up before, any of those single shot Rebel bows. And I've talked about this before. I have a gameplay video on my channel where I ran one in a sillies round, and I was just getting tag after tag after tag because they're just so immediate and goofy and silly, and it's like you could do the same thing with a jolt, but it's so much more physical and just more fun to play with, I think, than something tiny like a jolt. It's way bigger than it needs to be. It's just very silly. Similarly, the Busby slingshot, at the club in Massachusetts that Foamdemic runs, we occasionally play a game. I haven't been in a bit, but we occasionally play a game that's entirely based around those slingshots. Where you do that. You do that game. I've seen Captain Xavier run that game where you everyone has the revolvers. And
bucket of pistols.
When you get tagged, bucket of pistols. We did that, but it was bucket of slingshots.
Nice.
So you could keep picking up ammo off the ground. That's fine. You can just keep putting darts in there. But as soon as you get tagged, you put that slingshot down. You got to go back and get another one. It was amazing. It was so much fun. But my real new answer, which is not an answer I've already given before for another similar question, is No, I forgot the name of it. The car Nitro. Anything Nitro.
The car ones?
Goofy. The car ones. They're just so much. They're ridiculous. They're so much fun. Like, what a weird, dumb idea. But like, it's just so goofy and so much fun.
One with the magazine that holds cars. Yes. That one. I have so many of those. Because they're so, and I have a ton of cars too. Because sometimes I'll find them and I'll buy them if they have the cars.
I just imagine the universe that we are in that caused a car magazine to exist.
Yeah,
there's a car magazine. That's
hilarious.
So that's my real answer for this one. Nitro is dumb and ridiculous and so much fun, and whoever came up with it is a genius.
Yeah. God, you just took so many of the good ones too.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Y'all waited. Y'all delayed.
All right, fine. From my perspective, from a painting perspective, how about we'll mix it up a little bit since you've touched upon the good ones?
Sure.
Well, the Sling Fire, because I use it, and I know, well, it's not a bad blaster. It is in terms of how much money you got to dump into it to actually make it effective. But it's cool for my master keys. But more so, surprisingly, the Vagabond. The Vagabond, it's just the lines on it in terms of painting it. I love it as an undermount. I know performance is terrible. It's a revolver, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. But I just keep attaching it underneath stripes and everything else. And it is a cool looking blaster. And on the same token, the brain saw. When you attach a brain saw as a master key, especially when you're outside, even inside the hobby, and I pick up like the big master key with the brain saw underneath, and then demonstrate how it fires, how it shoots, everything else. And the last thing is I pull the cord and the saw rotates. And I've had a couple of times where people literally said, here's money, I'll take it. It's so
those are great answers. Those are really great answers, because it's like the brain saw is definitely one of those things that I feel like obligated to own one of. It's just like is sitting around, right? Because it's like it comes up, I need it as a prop in a video every now and then, But when you put it in a context like that, that is very, very cool. It is categorically it's a worse rough cut.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in that context, I mean, that's so cool. I love that.
All right. So for me, it's going to be, this is a bad blaster, I know, for a lot of people. The Dreadbolt. It is the most big, unreasonable blaster, but I got one and I took out all the stupid locks that are inside of it, and it became a really fun blaster. And I was able to get, and you could still buy the arrows. I wish, you could kind of use them a little bit more. They're a little bit odd to be using at a game or something, but in all honesty, it's actually the size of what you would really use, so it's comfortable. And again, when you remove the locks and you could actually like deprime it if you don't have an arrow in there and stuff, it works so much nicer. And it's like, that actually feels really good. I'm thinking maybe I'll paint the one that I did, but the old crossbows like that, like it's just unwieldy. And it's so many people get it, and then they just hate that they have it because they can't do anything. You can't. I'll just let everybody know you can remove the locks, and it makes it 100 times better. Just remove the locks, and you'll like it.
I need to do that because I do love mine anyway, but I never have an excuse to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got to just remove the locks. Well, the moment you do that, you will all of a sudden be like, wow, this is actually really fun because it's just goofy. And you could also, like I said, you could deprime it. The fact that you can deprime it, because the elastic is not that hard, you can actually just hold the elastic and just, like hold the trigger down and then just move it back. And it's not that bad. Anybody could do it. It's really not terrible. And it's again, I think it's a fun, bad blaster.
Right.
PSA announcement for those listening and have no crossbow experience. For the Dreadbolt, you can do that. Please do not do that with a real crossbow. Otherwise, be prepared for emergency rooms and reattaching fingers.
No, but I've had real crossbows in my life. Yes, Al is correct. Do not for PSA. Do not do that. It's very, very scary to do that. These things have 150-pound pull on them sometimes. Do not.
Yeah, please no.
Please no.
Well, speaking about goofy blasters, I think we're going to head into the last news segment of the podcast today. We are really lucky to have a member of our community, Chicken Master 99, who comes up periodically with huge dumps of leaks of information. Thank you so much again for bringing us these upcoming hints of blasters. So what we see, I'm assuming anyone listening to this has seen the show, but what we get is these like screenshots essentially of just a name and the brand and the price, and we're sort of left to ponder what we could actually be dealing with. And so what we like to do when we get those, we just kind of list them off on the show. But here we get to do a little bit more speculation and pondering what they might be. And so I hope you'll entertain this concept with us, Al, as we kind of go through this list and figure out what the heck could this be. And let's start with let's do this a little. I think it's easy. I know that I get in the mentality of it's like, okay, we go Nerf first, then we go Dart Zone, then we go X Shot. Let's mix it up, because I think that X Shot has this huge international market. Let's let them go first. The first one that we have here is X Shot Blaster Corn Heartbreaker Blaster, 16 darts, $7.99.
I know what it is.
Now, oh, do you?
Yes.
Are you going to tell us?
Yeah, clearly it's a plastic Cupid that shoots darts.
Oh my.
Well, okay, so I've heard a couple people talking about this and bringing up that it could be X-Shot Rebel. X-Shot had a like pink line. They had one.
Okay.
They had a bunch of those in like the early I have a set of X-Shot micros on package that are pink that have a like picture of a girl holding it, and it's like, okay, clearly you were trying to go after the Rebel market. So I mean, Heartbreaker sounds like the kind of name that they'd give to a product like that. Blaster Corn feels like a typo. We've seen typos in X-Shot names before. I do like to imagine that it's your idea that you're correct, but the darts are actually little corn cobs, I guess.
Gotta
like
be
arrows with like
They're just corn kernel tips on them. Is that what this is?
It's not even a blaster. It's two Cupids that look like a blaster, but you use them to hold the corn and eat the corn, and you get darts just for like a consolation prize.
X-Shot is getting into the kitchen utensil market now. I think it's reasonable to guess that this is like a like quote unquote girl line. But I think that Blaster Corn is a typo, and I cannot for the life of me figure out what it could be. Sometimes an R and an N, sometimes there's an M and it gets replaced with an R and an N, but I don't know what Blaster Com would be either. Like, that doesn't help.
Unlikely it was supposed to be Blaster
darts.
Porn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, definitely. X-Shot getting into kitchen utensils and then getting into the 18 plus market.
There it is. Yeah.
You thought 14 plus blasters were a big deal. Well, guess what?
Sadly, that flows. Blaster Porn Heartbreaker. Yeah, you know what? Don't even go there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. There's one other aspect to this though that is interesting. Let's remember that this is an $8 blaster with 16 darts. The next one is also a 16 dart blaster, but is $15. Costs almost twice as much. So whatever it is, it's definitely like something smaller. It's like a little pistol or a little bow or something little. Anyway, something to think about. The next one, and I don't get the feeling that these are from the same series. X-Shot Horror Fire Doomsday Blaster with 16 darts, $14.99. Horror Fire Doomsday Blaster.
I feel like we're on a game show here.
It feels like they put all, like, let's name our blaster, and then they were drawing it from a hat and pulled like 3 of the little pieces of paper at the same time, and they're like, all right, what'd you pull? All right, the first one is horror. All right, what's the next one? Fire. All right, cool, this is getting good. What's the next one? Doomsday. Perfect, run with it. Let's just go. And like, it's such a random, like, I mean, I don't know, because, even with the skins line, they had like some names with each one of the different skins they were creating, but none of them were like this random in their descriptions. They were normally like, a single name at most.
Well, I want to take you back a few months to when we were first hearing about the Insanity series, and we didn't know what the series was called yet, and we were getting all these leak names that were. Remember the Flywheel one had the wrong name. It was like one of them was spelled wrong. because there's like the Rage Fire and there's the Mad Mega Barrel, and like Mad Mega Barrel can kind of get a feel for what it is, right?
It was like Manic. Well, it was Maniac or something like that, wasn't it?
It was Maniac and Manic kept getting mixed up. But like we had no idea what that meant. Like those sounded like gibberish names. And then we find out it's called the Insanity series. And then it's like, oh, okay, it all kind of comes together. I get it now. So that's why I suspect these two blasters are not from the same series.
So then
I don't see how hard...
Could the Fire Doomsday Blaster then be in addition to the Insanity line? Or this might tie back into that it's not AI driven, that there are human involvement where they're like, so y'all like leaks? Here's a leak. Let's see what they come up with when I give them Fire Doomsday Blaster.
We see what you've been doing.
I would be so happy if they're literally coming up with names to play with us.
X-Shot,
that would be
I would love
great.
it. I would love it because X-Shot has sent me stuff before. And if they are keeping tabs on me and they are doing this because now I'm part of the Foam News Collective, I would absolutely. I don't know. That's a hard
that
thing
would make
to
me really
peak.
Happy.
That would make me happy.
Would like that.
That would be hilarious.
Okay. $15, 16 darts. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be all kinds of stuff.
Could be anything.
Maybe a little more parsable. We get into the Nerf ones. But there is something really interesting about all these names. The first one is Nerf N-Series Pinpoint Blaster, 1999. We don't get a number of darts or anything here, but I should caveat that all three of the Nerf ones all say N-Series. They all say Nerf N-Series. And this first, actually, I'm just going to read all three of them because I think we should consider them together. So the N-Series Pinpoint Blaster, the N for $19.99, the N-Series Gear Up Pack for $24.99, and the N-Series Pro Blaster 3.
Damn.
For $60. So Pro Blaster 3 and Pinpoint Blaster and Gear Up Pack do not sound like they're from the same... I guess it could go a couple different ways. Like a Gear Up Pack could theoretically be like, you get like, it could be like a Pro line product where you get like a Strife holster and extra mags and stuff.
Like an accessory pack, basically.
Right.
Because they've sold accessory packs. Obviously, they did that with, you know, the whatever I can't even remember it. Whatever the
Modulus line
was for Shadow and the Evader or whatever it was. Like they did that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, they did it with Modulus as well.
It definitely seems like I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. They've done it with Modulus.
Yeah, and Gear Up had the throwables and stuff, I think. I don't know. I think so. Like Pro Blaster 3, right? Like, okay, there's gonna be more Pro Blasters. Theoretically, their gel stuff is also Pro Blasters, so it could be a gel thing. $60. What would these $60 from Nerf? What kind of blaster would that be?
Could the Pro Blaster 3 then be the Rapid Strike?
That would be nice. If they're gonna do one, that would be cool. I would be into that.
Considering
we were talking about this in the Discord.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What were you say about the Rapid Strike?
Again, this is just at $60 Pro Blaster 3, and again, the whole the reshell reskinning, right? Just it's a Rapid Strike, but the difference is that it shoots a lot better, and you upgraded the battery that you developed for the Strife X.
So there was a point being made on the Discord earlier that in order to be compatible with Nerf ball, blasters need to be flywheelers. I don't think that's expressly true. If you watch the Nerf ball game that Nerf released, one of the very common strategies is for a player to just put the blaster down and go get the ball and let their teammates cover them. We do this in Nerf games all the time. At Maryland Mayhem, Beret was playing Titan Ball and just wasn't carrying a blaster at all and relying on other people to cover him and was just like, get a Titan, get a rocket, score a point. You know, like, so I think similarly, it's completely feasible to have players playing with a Springer. So I would not rule out Nerf creating a Pro Springer. is what I'm trying to say. Because a lot of people have been saying, like, they're definitely only going to make flywheelers. I do think a Pro Rapid Strike is very likely. And at the $50 price point,
$60
price point. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. $60
that
price
might be
point.
too low.
Here's the thing, though. That is too low if you consider the price of the Pro Strife.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you look at the Pro Strife, that a lot of people didn't understand the price, and it's like, well, it is an actual LiPo battery. It's not nickel cadmium.
Right.
To make a LiPo safe for consumers like that, in like for as a toy technically, even though it's considered for 14 up, that is a lot of safety measures and stuff. And if you actually look at the board for how it charges and stuff, it has to do balanced charging. It's basically built into the blaster.
Yeah.
At that point, that's a lot of the cost that comes into that guy. So seeing this for $60, unless it doesn't come with a battery, or unless they're doing something like the MK3, but even the the from Dart Zone, but even the MK3 was quite expensive. It was
more. We've seen them so cheap now, right? But the Mark III started out double this price.
Yeah.
Look, what is the precedent for $60 Pro blasters? It's the Nexus Pro and it's the Max Striker, and it's $60. It's primary
that's a very
class,
similar price point,
off the shelf springers.
So here's my thought. Based on, again, from our whole, most of the podcast, in terms of discussions of limitations, reskinning and repurposing for the purpose of saving, and especially if we're going to assume it's a Springer. So my first thought was, well, what existing Springer could then they upgrade with, therefore, without having to recreate a whole new shell, unless they already did. But let's assume they have not. Retaliator, just because for pro level you can't pump it fast enough. However, what if this then is a seriously upgraded Alpha Trooper that now takes half darts?
I'm here for it. That would be amazing. I don't know.
It's just a long shot that actually has a pusher breach in it.
Hey.
They basically did the worker mod into their long shot, and then they just turned it into a pro blaster.
I mean, that's what the Pro Strife was. They basically did the worker mod on the Strife. So.
I mean, at the end of the day, and that price point would still fit right within the long shot, because if you go with the Zombie Strike variant that didn't have the front gun on it.
But the problem with the long shot is that you got the bolt, where I think to make it a pro blaster, it'd have to be a pump grip. So that's why my money's on the Alpha Trooper.
I agree.
Well, what if they just do the basic mod and they flip the slide around and then just put a Retaliator on the bottom half?
Oh, because that costs money and design, and it'd be 160.
See, they have the CAD. They have the CAD. They could just pull the Retaliator back in and put it on the front, and that designer's like, "I am worth my money."
You guys, you're overlooking the obvious thing here. You could tell the AI to take the Retaliator and attach it to the long shot. That's right. And you're just done.
Done.
And Bob's your uncle. There it is.
Okay.
Yep.
But I think we agree that this looks like a Springer. That this price point, this can't be a flywheeler. So that leaves us with the gear up pack and the pinpoint blaster. Pinpoint blaster at $20. That's a toy grade blaster, right? Like there's no way that's a pro line series.
Yeah.
The gear up pack, I think, could be anything. It's probably just an accessory kit, which is great, because I feel like I really hope that that's the case. It could just be one of these like crappy Elite 2.0-ish blasters.
Probably.
The question that leaves me with is, what is N series? And why is it applied to both a pro blaster and what is probably a toy blaster?
Yeah. The only other worry that I have is all these ones with the N series is they're all gel. That would be my only concern.
Right.
Because, that would be that sometimes with certain things they have nomenclature that is like a code for this particular line or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to go that route. I have no clue. And would be all these prices could work, because even spring powered gel blasters would hit a lot of these price points. Right. So
yep.
I mean, that would be a bummer for Hasbro, because one of the things we talked about in this story is how a number of retailers are already starting in addition to this situation with Orbeez style toy water beads being being shut down by retailers, some of them have opted to just take gel blasters off the shelves too, so that they just don't have the gels anywhere on the shelves or available in store. Because I think they wisely realize that parents who don't give a crap and just want to buy their kid's favorite gel bead toy are going to realize that they can buy Nerf gel fire rounds and get a similar experience. And so I have a feeling that this market is heading for a challenging time. The gel blaster market is heading for a challenging time, especially when we're coming out of this thing with the patent arguments that we've been having between Nerf and other companies, and all those sort of legal issues behind the market. I think it's headed for a bad time. So, if this is all gel, good luck, y'all.
Yeah.
Moving on finally to Dart Zone. We have, and I don't know how the T's got lost on covert on all of these. They're obviously covert ops. If they said cover, that was definitely a typo. Dart Zone Covert Ops Storm Squad Blaster 2-pack, $9.99.
Oh, I know this one.
There's an easy one.
I know this one. It is also a Cupid blaster that shoots corn and.
No, this one is definitely melee. I think this one is definitely Dart Zone melee. No, yeah, Storm Squad is an existing blaster. It's a pack with 2 of them. Okay, easy. Yep. Good, we got an easy one. Dart Zone Covert Ops Renegade Double Barrel Blaster.
At $10,
so
it'll be small.
I saw in the Discord. Well, I saw in the Discord, and it was Axel Sorax actually posted an image, and apparently it's an older blaster that they've already had. I'm not really familiar with it, but
is it like a Derringer?
Was that what?
No, it's this weird. I'd have to look at the image again, but it was this really weird. It looks sort of like a pump action, like an over under.
Okay. Yep.
Type of thing. I don't remember the exact, because and the screenshot that Axel Sorax linked was from Nerf Wiki. So again, I guess either it is a re-release, but I mean, we've seen people or companies rehash names before, so
yeah,
I don't know.
To me it screams like one of those like Buzzbee style little shotgun things.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, at a $10, right? At a $10 price point, maybe they are trying to compete with the like Adventure Force Buzzbee shotgun with just like a simple double barrel thing. Renegade is a very like Wild West kind of name. That's where I would lean, I think.
I agree. I just pulled up some of the pictures. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one, which I think is really interesting, is the Dart Zone Covert Ops Bulldog Tripod Belt Blaster. So this is... There's a lot of detail in this, right? It seems, as we said in the show, it seems like it's a response to the motorized Ragefire by X-Shot. Right?
Yeah,
I'd be very excited.
Price point, at that price point, though, it's cheaper. It is because the Ragefire is only $50, which is still surprising for what it is. This is $30, so Springer?
Maybe.
I
mean, it's also possible that it's like we read tripod and we think the X-Shot tripod, which is tall.
Yeah, it's quite large.
It could
is this going to be like a Scorpion or a V-twin? I don't know.
Maybe, or it's just like a Vulcan tripod, like a little tiny guy that it sits on a table.
Yeah, because it's not like they don't have belt blasters. Again, the V-twin is one that is currently on shelves that is right around $30 as well. That's a belt.
It could literally
blaster.
just be like a V-twin with a little tripod thing on it.
That's it's possible. Maybe they changed the grip on it or something. you know, so it's not like the handle on the top and the front, the fore handle or grip on it. I have no idea. That's the only thing.
As long as they sell extra belts, because they've been a little spotty about that lately.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it looks something like the Rage Fire, because that'd be fantastic.
I mean, that'd be great. One of those nice long rotating barrels. Super fun.
Yeah.
Lots of options. I've seen people do cool stuff already with the Rage Fire. So
I need more.
Hopefully Dart Zone will get something with Dart Zone quality plastic.
Where's your underslung Rage Fire builds, Al? I'm waiting for an underslung Rage Fire on a Strife, okay?
So is everybody else. It's on the list.
I'm just saying, we're expecting it at this point. Come on now.
If you want to make something that's really huge, it would be pretty incredible to see. I don't know which one would be the undersling, but take I always get the names mixed up. It's not the Mastodon. It's the really big...
The Megalodon?
Megalodon. The really big mega... integrate that with a Rage Fire. I don't know how exactly.
I'm here for it.
I will think about it, and I'll probably make it happen just for fun.
All right. Fabulous. Fabulous. Finally, we have the Dart Zone Covert Ops Max Striker 2.0, $50.
This one I'm kind of excited about. Yeah.
What do we think they're going to change in the 2.0? That's the real question. What will they actually...
Is it going to be half dart only? Because the other one was still similar to the Nexus, right? Where it had full lengths on it.
Correct.
Maybe they're going to go full, just half dart only.
Dart Zone has breached the line of putting a half dart only blaster on shelves. True. We have the Max Outlaw exists. It is a half dart only blaster, and you can walk in. In rural Vermont, can walk into my closest Target and buy a Max Outlaw. And that tells you that half dart exclusive blasters are real.
Yeah. Was the Tomcat also something you could get in store? I don't remember.
Half dart only.
Not my store.
Yes. No, wait. Yes, you can.
Was it in store? I know you could get it online, but I couldn't remember if you could get it in store, because that was also a half dart only. Yeah. It was just a drum fed, half dart, but...
Well, regardless, they've done it, so half dart only is certainly a possibility.
Wasn't the Max Striker $60 when it came out too? The first
think so.
$59.99, yeah.
Yeah. So there's your other thing. It's $10 cheaper if they don't have the telescoping breach, and it's half dart only. That saves them in cost of the actual blaster, like overhead cost for having additional parts and even the manufacturing, thing getting put together. Right. That's my prediction. Half dart only striker.
It's a good one. I mean, I don't know what other bigger thing they would change, right?
It might have some styling changes, because even between the other variants between like a 1.2.
I'm sure the design language will be updated, and yeah. I'm sure they'll make cosmetic changes, but like they're bringing the price down. I mean, like one of the reasons the price could potentially be lower is if it's half dart only, they only have to provide one magazine.
Yep.
They don't have to provide an adapter.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that could be it. That could be the big thing.
I'm going to guess
would be great. That would be a welcome.
I'm going to wonder if they've also changed the front grip to see if it's a pistol or if it's still like a... I'm guessing they're going to change something on there as well. But I think you're right. The main thing is making it just half dart only.
Yeah. I think the price change reflects that for sure, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our predictions are in. We will not remember to come back and check on them when the blasters appear. But if you are listening to this and you want to call us out on it later, sure.
Wait.
It's your prerogative.
Do you know what the front grip's going to be on the Dart Zone Covert Ops Max Striker 2.0? It's going to be a plastic cubit that shoots corn.
I think I've already decided that Corn Kernel Cupid is going to be the title of this episode. So
Corn Kernel Cupid.
So that'll be good.
That's it right there.
That'll be good. Man, this almost feels unnecessary at this point because this has been going through the leaks has been so much fun, but we always enter. I already typed it. I see you typing it in the doc. I already put it in a separate doc.
I was trying to help you here.
No, I appreciate the help. You're good. Okay. We always like to end with a lighthearted question to ease us out of the pod. I should probably also mention this at some point here. If you've listened to this point and you're like, hey, what's that blaster? We definitely aren't doing it today, partly because we are understaffed and it's already weird when we're missing one person. But we're pretty confident that we're going to be retiring What's That Blaster. It is becoming difficult to find good descriptions. There are not as plentiful. Those of you who remember from the beginning know that I based that game off of a game played on a Pokemon TCG podcast. There are a lot more good descriptions of Pokemon than good descriptions of blasters. So we are having difficulty finding more material, but we are kind of looking for a new thing to replace it with. So we're open to suggestions. Chuck them at us in the comments. But for now, we're just skipping it. I think we've had plenty of fun today, and we're going to end with talking for a second about the Happy Line Toys Alien Gen line, which we covered in this episode. And they are little toy blasters that are just funky little alien guys. They're just goofy little guys. And like a lot of them are kind of looking back at you while you're shooting them. And they're just funky and slimy and weird. And I don't feel like we've seen a lot of like every time like Nerf comes out with something like Dino Squad, everybody kind of flips out because it's like, oh, we haven't seen this since what's that vintage line?
Max Force.
Yeah. It's kind of like Max Force and like Dino Squad, and then like some of the weird D&D stuff, sorta, and Minecraft to a lesser degree. But like these are great because they're not based on like a franchise. And so I kind of want to know what if you got to just pick a weird, goofy thing to make some blasters that look like them. That's not like a franchise thing. These are based on weird slime aliens, and Nerf has done dinosaurs. What would you pick? Just something silly.
All right, mine is more based on a franchise, but I'll think about it. But
is it?
It's got to be off of the Aliens franchise, where when you pull the trigger, the xenomorph egg opens up and a thing like jumps out at your face, but stops just short. So as you're aiming, you're looking down an egg.
It's almost like the Demigorgon one that Dart Zone did, or the Adventure Force did. Yeah, the it's almost like that. That's how I envision it. I think is when you pull the trigger, the face opens up and it fires a dart.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. I was gonna say for me it would be like not necessarily horror themed, but the like ghosts.
Oh,
I as much as I want to try to keep it out of there, I keep thinking of like Slimer from Ghostbusters for some reason every time I think of it.
Totally.
Because that's a perfect example of like you can make really goofy looking kind of monsters or ghosts or not necessarily mythical, but folklore type of monsters like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are fun. I think something like that would just be ridiculous.
Because I always think about like the X-Shot bug. Remember the X-Shot Bug Hunter line or whatever it was called?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They had like the little ooze on the side of the blasters, like molded into it.
And they came with those like splat bugs that you could throw at your window, and they'd like crawl down, and you could try to shoot them.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of possibility with sort of like vague stuff like that. Ghosts is a really good one. I was kind of thinking like animals, like funny animals, like penguin. I'm just gonna say a flightless bird series.
That'd be
fun. You got your penguins, You got your flamingo. Wait, do flamingos fly? Flamingos fly, don't they? I'm gonna be a fool. I am an utter fool.
I will say it. No, they don't. Go ahead.
They don't.
Well, I'll be on the hook if I'm wrong.
I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm just saying weird birds. We're going with the weird birds. A flamingo blaster would be amazing. Would it not be amazing?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm still stuck on the penguin because the first thing I think of is Pingu and the blaster saying "newt newt" as you fire it.
I'm sure, fine. No matter how hard we try, we cannot get away from the franchises. But I'm totally okay with a newt newt blaster.
A newt newt blaster is great, right? Like I think it'd be hilarious.
So would your big heavy one of that one be an ostrich one?
Yes.
And it shoots giant eggs?
They're like the egg popper blasters where it's like they're like all those ball blasters that they had. They're weird like unicorn ones and stuff where they would like you squeeze them and they pops out of their mouth, but instead it's just a ginormous bird.
When you said that, I was going to suggest a unicorn one, but then in my head it's going now we're just talking about My Little Pony all over the place. So maybe not that one.
True. Well, it can't get away from the franchises.
No, but when you said ghosts, what popped in my head, which might be fun, and you can go in so many different directions, horror but fun. So the first thing I thought about was something like fairy, but then just doing fae creatures, just doing the fae, as in terms of you can go in so many different directions and make it really fun.
That's cool. I like that a lot. The idea of maybe they're very sort of like rooted in like natural textures and a lot of like plant life stuff and just like magic sort of. That's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yes, exactly.
I am sad to report, by the way, that flamingos do fly. It's common to think that they don't because ones in zoos have their wings clipped.
Yeah.
So it's a zoo flamingo blaster.
Yes. Zoo flamingos and fairies and ghosts. Good answers. Major brands, if you hear this, contact us for licensing. We are all available at our, contact's pretty easy to find.
And we're human, not AI.
We are human. We are not AI designers. So there's that benefit. But yeah, with that, I think we have casted a pod. Al, really appreciate you coming on. Today was super, super fun. Glad we got to recap recent happenings. Look forward to a new year, new exciting things. Would you please tell the folks where they can find you? We will, of course, link to the World Foam Alliance and everything down in the description as well. But tell them where they can find your work.
Absolutely. So most of my work is based off my Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/AlTheGeek. My Instagram account, Facebook, I think is where I post the most common stuff, facebook.com/AlTheGeek. Through the World Foam Alliance, I do have a YouTube channel, but it is kind of lacking, and I do have a TikTok account, AlTheGeek right there as well. But I also just wanted to say, gentlemen, I just love what you guys do. It is amazing for the hobby, for everything in general. The amount of work you put in, the quality that you do, the shows that you put out. It's just fantastic because it's exactly what people want to see and want to hear. It's fun, it's interesting, it's thorough. It's not. You guys don't look for the edge. How do we make people watch? You guys just tell it what it is and makes it and what's interesting, and that's, I think, is what the best part of what you do. So again, from myself and from many other people in the hobby that have not probably told you but want to tell you, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so kind, especially from someone like yourself that I think we see as a giant in the hobby for sure. Really appreciate that. And I think that's it. I'm tired and have to edit this and finish the show. But you know what? We're recording on a Wednesday and not on a Thursday. I have a whole extra day to finish the show.
So much time.
So I might just sleep after this. That's incredible.
It's a new era.
Year,
new year,
new
you.
era, new us.
You should sleep.
It's a good feeling.
Oh, I wanted to
I'm
ask.
gonna do my best.
Maryland Mayhem, are either of you going to be attending?
I am planning on it. I have not worked
Nice.
out my details yet, but I'm planning on it.
I'm kind of in the same boat. We'll see. This is going to be an interesting year for me. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to hit more events.
Perfect. I'll put that both down as a yes and thank you. And we now recorded that, so I'm kidding. Love to see you guys here if you can. Exactly.
We had an amazing time last year, and I definitely want to go again. It's just a long drive for me. That's it. Well, I say that it sounds like I'm saying, oh, it's such a long drive. No, I'm saying it's just one long drive, which makes it more feasible than having to fly. So I'm planning on it.
Awesome.
But we'd love to be there as Foam News Collective again. We got to work on it.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's our promise to you, audience, because I'm not editing this part out. Have a great night, everybody.